Hey guys, today I want to talk about kind of a cool subject. We've talked about this subject a long time ago and I want to bring it up again. I was watching Backwaters and Back Roads. It's one of my favorite vloggers, and he goes on these boat trips on these what's called shanty boats. They're actually kind of like a houseboat actually, but they're liveaboards. You can live aboard them or go on weekend trips or whatever on the smaller ones, and they're kind of fun. And I was thinking about these for over in the Philippines because we already have kind of shanty boats in the Philippines already. They build them on the catamarans and the trimarans that they have in the Philippines, the homemade ones. And the bajau kind of live up on stilts, which isn't a boat, but they also have their they build homes on top of boats that travel around too. And they're kind of cool to see when you see them because they're really just like a shack. They usually got a couple of hammocks hanging up in them, and they're kind of rough. But you know something? It's actually kind of cool here in the Philippines because we have that tropical weather. You can travel around, you can go fishing, you can bring your boat pretty much wherever you want. I wouldn't bring it on the rough seas or anything like that, but you know, it's kind of a cool lifestyle. And what got me onto this subject this time again was this. I was looking at drones online and I happened to come across this pontoon boat, and it had aluminum deck plating, okay, and it was a neoprene rubber type pontoon. It had two pontoons, and it was about 6 feet wide or 2 meters wide by 4 meters long, which is like about 12 feet long. Okay, and I was saying to myself, I says, you know something? That's big enough to actually have two people on. It would be a little crowded, but you could have two people on there, and you could have a tent on there also, and have enough space to probably walk around a little bit on the outside. It would be a little crowded, but you could do it. Now you could put maybe a ice box on there or some things like that. You could probably take a couple of fans with you that are the batteries that are already the rechargeable battery types or the solar type on there, and you could hang it up inside your tent or whatever, and you could have a fan inside there for if it gets too hot. But most of the time when you travel, and you can always find some place like a cool area where there's a nice breeze or something like that. When you're along the ocean, usually you get those ocean breezes. Also, I noticed that on one of the pictures, they had somebody had welded or put something in there that would hold one of those picnic umbrellas, so you could put that on there too. But I mean, that would kind of make for like a sail. But I mean, if you put that up where you're sitting still or something, it might be fine and it might actually work. But I was thinking about this and I was saying to myself, I says, you know something, that'd be great for somebody that comes over here that's younger or even older that likes fishing and wants to go out for like the weekend or an overnight trip or whatever. I wouldn't recommend to live in, but you know something, it would certainly be cool for weekend trips, maybe on some of the lakes around here, because there are a few lakes and there's also quite a few rivers that you can go on, and that would work excellent on there, you know, because it would just give you the freedom to travel about. You'd probably only need like a 5 or 10 horsepower motor. I think a 5 horsepower would probably be fine on there for chugging along on the water. Maybe you might need a 10, I'm not sure, you know, but I think a 5 would probably do it. I think a 5 or 7.5 horsepower motor would push you along fine in that thing. But anyway, I want to talk about this a little bit more. And you may want to watch Backwaters and Back Roads, and he'll give you some great ideas, because you could probably buy some of these boats that he shows on there sometimes around here. If you looked around in the Philippines, you can probably find some of these boats. They do exist in the Philippines. They're harder to find, but they do exist. But anyway, you could live on a boat in the Philippines pretty easy. A lot of people say, well, Steve, a boat, you know, that's like just a big hole in the water. It's a money pit, you know, and it depends. I'm going to tell you why it depends. Because if you get a good motor that's trustworthy and a good brand name motor, it'll last you a long time. I've had some motors, and I never spent a lot of money on my motors, with the exception of changing the plugs and, you know, things like that. If you get a good motor, it'll last you a long time, and it's very little upkeep. You just carry some extra plugs and a toolbox with you, and usually you're fine. And, you know, get something that's pretty efficient with gas and everything. You'll do fine. But here's the thing: if you bought a pontoon boat, where's the money gonna go? You don't have all these extra things that you have to put money into, fixing cables and fixing inboard motors and all that stuff. That's the great part about having like a shanty style home. There's not a lot of upkeep. You can fix it any way you want. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I've seen boats where, like, if you buy a yacht or some high-end boats or something like that, yeah, they're a money pit. You can throw a ton of money in there. But a shanty boat is just something you can stick a motor on the back. You can fix it up the way you want, and you can live in it, and you can live rent-free. Okay, that's the best part, rent-free. You can dock it in some little bay or harbor or whatever and stay there. And in a lot of places in the Philippines, you can stay for free, but you can travel about and live pretty decent. Now, of course, can you travel on the open seas and something like this? Probably not. But something, in some places you could travel along the shoreline or something like that on a calm day, and you'd probably be fine depending on the size of the boat. I would be very careful about taking risks with these types of boats because they're not the type of boats you really want to take out in the open sea. But some of the Filipino type boats that they build these shanty homes on top are very, very seaworthy, even in rougher waters. Okay, so you may want to look on getting like one of the trimarans or the boats with the pontoons or whatever. Get something like that, build something on top of it, and build it very, very strong and lightweight or whatever. Put a couple of hammocks in there and a refrigerator, maybe some solar panels on the top, and guess what? You're ready to roll. But you'd have to have a good sized boat to carry that weight. So you want to make sure that you have all the comforts of home on there for the weekend or whatever, unless you're just going to be using like a big block of ice or something like that out there or whatever. Or if you're going to be using your solar panels or whatever to run the refrigerator and have a couple of battery packs on there to run that refrigerator at night or that freezer at night, but you'll be fine. And it's all about the way you build it and you make it. And people build these all different ways. If you're going to use it for weekend trips, you know what? An ice box would do you fine. But I think there's a lot of alternatives here in the Philippines that are much different than the U.S. And you could make your own Filipino style, shanty boat or shanty home or whatever you want to call it. And it would be kind of cool to have something like that in the Philippines. With all these people that are having these different types of lifestyles, expats, for instance, van lifers, then you got the shanty boaters, you got the people that live on their boats, and all these different people that are taking off and quitting their jobs and leaving their jobs. And, they're going out and they're doing vlogs, such as myself, and they're making money, while they're enjoying life and being retired or whatever, or they're discovering that there's a new life out there for them, but you just got to find it and make it yours and grab it and say, hey, that's going to be my life now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it work. It takes a little while. It took me a little while to get my life started up and revved up and really going to where it is today. And my life isn't perfect by no means, but something, my life is pretty decent. I'm really happy with my life the way it is. But something, I love seeing people have their dreams come true. And I just want to throw this out there because this might be a dream for somebody that was, it would be really cheap for these guys that want to live on like lower budgets and things like that. This might be for you. Just build a really, really good boat. Stay in a place where there's very little typhoon action in the Philippines, because there are places where typhoons don't hit as often in the Philippines, and you could probably find a nice river or something that you could just coast up and down the river and maybe come out into the ocean a little bit once in a while and do some fishing or whatever, go back up the river and just pull over to the side and live in your boat and be fine. And it would be kind of cool, especially for you guys that are like tinkering with motors and building homes and things like that. You could, on these boats that they have in the Philippines, especially the bigger ones, you could put a lot of home on there. And these fishing boats, you could put a lot of space on there for cooking, sleeping, for storage, things like that. Trust me, there's all different types of ways to skin a cat here in the Philippines. God bless, guys. Take care.